Welcome, dear listeners and viewers of the FarView podcast. In this podcast, Sara Bibler will tell us about the purpose, findings, and takeaways of her study, Thinking Outside of the Box, Engaging Auditors Innovation Mindset to Improve Auditors Fraud Procedures. This study is part of the dissertation that Sara is currently writing at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. The co-authors on this paper are Margaret Christ, Tina Carpenter, and Anna Gold. What did you study in the paper?
So in this paper, our main focus was looking at an innovation mindset. So a lot of firms these days, and this has sort of been a byproduct of the introduction of new technologies, a lot of firms are talking about innovation. And specifically, they're not just talking about innovative technologies, they're also talking about innovative mindsets. So all big four firms now basically talk about innovative mindsets, innovative perspectives as something they value in their auditors these days. Additionally, the CIQ in the US has mimicked the same thing, that an innovative perspective and mindset, thinking outside the box, is important for auditors these days. But we really don't have any evidence to back up, one, that they're actually being encouraged to be innovative in the first place. So whether this is sort of a talking point or if auditors are really being innovative. And two, what does this mean for audit quality? So we were thinking about this innovation mindset and what kind of impacts it might have on an audit, and thinking about areas that it might benefit audit quality. We thought about fraud. So we know auditors historically struggle with fraud, and we also know fraud can be a creative thing. So having to kind of circumvent internal controls at a company or come up with ways to be successful with fraud, an individual needs to have some element of creativity. So if we think about innovation as creativity in action, which is kind of how we define it in the paper, we think that it could actually really help auditors be able to better detect fraud, kind of thinking outside of the box, thinking flexibly. So that was our main original question, is does prompting an innovative mindset among auditors encourage them to be better at detecting fraud? And we did this through an experiment, and we looked at an actual case of fraud. So this was an enforcement release that's been used previously for accounting experiments, but it's a real live fraud, and there's indicators in the case related to the fraud. So we can really measure whether the procedures that the participants indicate, whether they actually would have been at least able, in theory, to detect the fraud, the actual fraud that happened. So we look at this innovation mindset, and we look at this through prompting an innovative culture. So we tell all of the participants, half of them, we give them an email from the firm CEO talking about the culture of the company as very innovative and creative culture. And in the other condition, we talk about, kind of just a standard audit culture, efficiency, quality, educate yourself, things like this, which we think is more the status quo at the moment. So we look at these two kind of company philosophies as a way to look at how an innovative mindset leads to potentially better detection of fraud. And then in addition to this, so when we were thinking about this innovative mindset as sort of a byproduct of introduction of new innovative technologies, we were thinking, okay, what else might be at play here? And actually one of my co-authors wrote a paper about data analytics and interviewed practitioners and regulators related to data analytics, and client insights being one of the things that is now being talked about a lot with the introduction of new technologies. So another byproduct of using innovative technologies on audits is that auditors are increasingly being asked to provide client insights in addition to their normal job. So we kind of wanted to look at whether this innovation mindset might kind of play a role as well with this client insights. So at face level, this might kind of detract from the main goal of audit quality by focusing on client insights. And there's definitely some concern that regulators have voiced out there that client insights might be a little similar to consulting, which of course is auditors should stay away from. But we look at it as potentially a fine goal, because you're really, when you're providing client insights, you're getting to know your client better inherently. And though there is potential to distract from the main goal of audit quality, we think if you can kind of focus on these goals harmoniously, that this can actually lead to better audit quality. So particularly when you have this innovation mindset. So we think that when you have this innovation mindset, you're thinking more flexibly, you're thinking more creatively. There is some research that shows that if you're thinking flexibly, you can better accommodate multiple goals. So basically our second question is, when you introduce this client insights goal paired with the innovation mindset, will that also lead to better fraud procedures, or does that actually detract from the audit quality?
What did you find?
Yeah, in our study, we found what we expected to with the innovation mindset as a main effect. So we saw that auditors that were encouraged to be innovative were able to find or plan more procedures that would be effective at detecting fraud. So really, we saw this increase in audit quality when people were asked to be innovative or put in kind of this innovation mindset. What we didn't find is that this additional goal of client insights led to any negative effects. So we found that there was no decrease in audit quality when you inserted this client insights goal. We also didn't find that it further exacerbated, which is something we expected. We thought it might actually increase creativity even further. But it didn't do that. But I think it's positive news in that this client insights goal alone does not hurt audit quality. And we found one of our hypotheses as well. So we looked at the effective audit procedures that would detect fraud, but we also looked at quality client insights. So we wanted to see kind of these two goals and these two tasks, and whether there were kind of some choices being made there, or whether auditors were really paying attention to both goals. And what we found is that for both tasks, the people who performed the best were in the innovation mindset and in the client insights goal condition. So really, I think what that tells us is that these goals can work harmoniously together, and that you see the best kind of outputs from auditors when we're looking at these goals specifically when they are in that innovation mindset. So we think that's really positive news for practice, because it is the world auditors are operating in now, that they're asked to provide client insights. There's some regulator concern about that, but we think, it's not really an issue. So that's what our findings tell us.
What are the takeaways?
Takeaways from this study, I think for auditors, it's really, being innovative can be really useful. So kind of at that individual level, knowing that being creative, thinking outside the box can really be beneficial for audit quality, I think is important for auditors to understand. I think for audit firms, I think it's important that they know that this is not just like a buzzworthy, being creative, being innovative, like that's kind of a hot topic right now, but it's really, there's a real benefit for audit quality. I think what firms would find interesting in practitioners is that what we actually found as well is that in the innovation mindset condition, people not only had higher audit quality by being able to detect the fraud, but they actually did this much quicker. So I think when you talk about creativity, people get really worried that people are going to come up with tons of ideas and this is going to take time. And then, that's really not what we find at all. We find that people are more efficient, they're kind of more dialed in with their thinking. So I think that's important for firms to keep in mind, that beyond the audit quality finding, which should be compelling, it actually increases efficiency, which I think is also, of course, important for the bottom line for firms. When I'm thinking about what this means for regulators, I think the innovation mindset is great. So I think they don't need to be concerned with kind of creativity and auditing and maybe some negative connotations there. I think what is most compelling for regulators right now, based on what we know they're concerned about, is that client insights really is not, we think might have some unfounded concerns there. So they're concerned that client insights is a bad thing, is detracting from audit quality. And we think we provide some evidence in this specific context that that may just not be the case. And if anything, it might actually kind of work hand in hand with audit quality. So we think, of course, there needs to be more research done, but we think, hoping to kind of tamp down on those concerns a little bit there.
But what could firms do then? I understand the takeaway, but what can you do?
Yeah, so I think firms, they should be encouraging innovation kind of at their core and creativity at their core. I think if you have these kind of, these firms have, what is the ideal employee? We have these 5 values or something like that. And you hear that kind of messaging at that level, but it doesn't always make it into your day-to-day kind of messaging at that level. So maybe at your team level, maybe, efficiency is such a big concern that you're not really feeling that you can be creative because you're on such a time crunch. I think there is some research that kind of being very deadline focused can really tamper creativity. Of course, everything is deadline focused in auditing, but I think what firms should actively be doing is trying to kind of provide an environment that encourages creativity. So providing, an open error climate where, okay, you try something new, maybe it doesn't work like we expected, that's okay. Maybe we don't see it as wasted time. We're furthering our understanding. We're trying to come up with new ways to solve things. Maybe upfront investment can be high when you're being creative, but that leads to better audit quality and better efficiencies maybe in the future. So I think kind of like at this holistic level, firms just being able to create this culture that provides a safe space for people to be innovative in their thinking and not so focused on what have we always done, let's just do it that way. Just providing that environment.